Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Live Since You Asked for today, Thursday, May 7th. Happy to have you with us today, and really happy to welcome Mike Yastrzemski, St. John's Prep class of 2009 and current member of the San Francisco Giants. Mike, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you connecting with us from your home in Nashville. Mike, we're going to give, you have a good number of people tuning in today. We won't tell Pat Connaughton this, but you have more attendees for your session than Pat Connaughton had for his. Not that it's a competition.
Okay. I'll let him know.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. But we, what I'll do is just ask you a couple general questions, and then our students and those tuning in, I'll have a chance to throw some questions in as well. Just, starting off, Mike, I've had a chance to read a couple interviews, and when you were back at Fenway this summer, it was pretty emotional, and there was some prep connections there. Can you just talk about your experience at St. John's and how that experience has stayed with you both in the world of academics and the world of athletics as well?
Yeah. It honestly, without knowing it before I went there, the second that I had accepted to go there, I really was structured and I really needed that in my life. I was an only child and kind of running around the house with my mom crazy and driving her crazy for sure. And from the second that I stepped on campus, I felt like I had a good routine, whether it be athletically or academically, mostly academically. And that inspired me. So when I'd go home, I would do my homework right away because I knew that if I wanted to go do the other things that I wanted to in life, I had to make sure that I took care of my academics first. So it was really instilled in me from everybody at the prep from day one.
That's awesome. And you still stay connected with guys that you know from St. John's, teammates and others?
Yeah, I went golfing with Colin Blackwell last week, had him over for dinner, and I talk to Pat every now and then and a bunch of other guys, and it's been really fun to stay in touch with those guys and see what everybody's doing.
That's great. What's it like, Mike, for you to go from, chasing the dream of being able to play in the major leagues and kind of, you've talked a little bit about it in different interviews and newspaper stories, you spent some time in the minor leagues and then you made it to the show, so to speak. What motivated you to kind of persevere in the face of, continuing being in the minor league before making it to the big leagues?
Well, the first thing is that I just love playing baseball, and because I love it, it was really easy to stick with it, even when it's hard and tough. Those were the challenges that I wanted to face throughout my life and the ones that I wanted to overcome. And just because it got hard for a little bit doesn't mean it wasn't a journey that was meant for me. Everybody's got their own path, and I just embraced it. And I think that's why I was able to stick with it so long that you're not making any money, you got to work off-season jobs, there's all these other things that you have to do to stay afloat. But that kind of came with the territory of what I wanted to do when I started the journey. So I just accepted it and tried to move one step forward every day.
That's awesome. I always look at, I joke around, my job has a little bit of stress here and there, but, I don't have to perform in front of 35, 40,000 people and have them all look at me, as I'm standing at the plate and have all eyes on me. What's it like when you're, at a major league park and you're at the plate, and how do you keep calm and keep focused, with all the distractions that are going on, and all that's happening in that world?
Most of it's through your preparation. So I take so many swings and make so many throws and take ground balls and fly balls, and all of those things done over and over and over again create confidence. And when you're confident that you're going to be able to get the job done, it doesn't matter how many people are watching. I guess I'll put it as like responding to an email. If you're going to respond to an email and you have 40,000 people watching you, and you've responded to 100,000 emails in life, and so you can do it with ease. And even if you write the long letter and you have to delete it in backspace, there's no fear of making a mistake because everybody makes mistakes, and that's part of it.
Sure. Just the in your fun world, in your world, when you make a mistake, I don't usually have 40,000 people booing me or whatever it may be, as well as TV commentators or talk show hosts who are going to be talking about it the next day as well.
Yeah, you just kind of learn to block that out. You learn to not pay attention to anything. So I don't really read a whole lot of news or watch SportsCenter or anything like that, because getting sucked in to the outside world of that is the way that you spiral yourself out. So whether it's good or bad, you just really have to try and stay on an even keel plane and just make sure that you're not riding emotional highs and lows for too long, because it'll drain you out.
Sure. What was it like, Mike, being back at Fenway and being with your grandfather there and kind of kind of the great number 8 and now you're competing against the Red Sox as a San Francisco Giant. Can you talk about what that experience was like?
It was so cool. I mean, even we joked about it when I got traded that they played the Red Sox that year and it was in September and there's always a chance. And so it kind of had this really big buildup of a possibility that could really happen. And when it did, it was honestly, it was pretty overwhelming. There was so many emotions that were running through me. I had a lot of media that I had to do and was, happy to do too, because it was a really cool, unique story. But it was almost better in memory. And I didn't get to really experience how special it was. It was very special, but looking back, it's even more special being able to have that as a piece of my life that happened and to be able to share with so much family. And I grew up going to those games. I missed my first varsity game because I was at the opening day game. And Eli was like, "Hey, where were you?" I'm like, I'm sorry. I tried to make it. I got there in the 9th inning and he pinch hit me. And I was like, "I'm really sorry. Dwight Evans blocked our car in at the game and I couldn't get out." And he just kind of like looked at me like I was lying. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." And so I have like so many of these memories at Fenway, and to be able to create another one where I'm actually involved in the game was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I remember as a kid growing up and watching your grandfather play and then seeing you guys out on Fenway together was just a really, knowing you from being as a prep student and then knowing the reputation of your grandfather, it was pretty awesome to see. It's pretty emotional just watching it from my family room. So that must have been great.
It was cool, special.
One of our parents is asking, Mike, if you look at your experience, have you always been just a baseball player, or shouldn't have you always focused on baseball? Have you played other sports? And kind of when did you really look at it exclusively playing baseball?
I actually played hockey up until junior fall. I was on the freshman team and JV team and loved hockey. It was my favorite sport to play, honestly. And I tried out for the golf team when I was a freshman, but I shot 47 on my front 9 and didn't show up for the rest of the time.
That's a bad day.
Yeah, and I played sports growing up. I played soccer, basketball, hockey, everything. But I actually tweaked my shoulder one day playing in a fall league right before tryouts. And at that point, I was like, I know where my future is right now, because I talked to a few colleges, and I decided that at that point, that's when I was going to focus. But if I could go back, I would have kept playing hockey and finished it out for the 4 years if I would have made the team, because I love playing other sports, and I think it keeps you really athletic and really gives you your best potential to grow athletically as far as you can.
Sure. That's great. When you look at what's happening right now with the shutdown, and it's a little different in Tennessee than it is here in Massachusetts, we're kind of still under the stay-at-home order. How are you staying in shape? How are you able to kind of continue to kind of maintain that athleticism despite all the restrictions?
Yeah, my wife actually does a online yoga class, Yoga Sculpt. So it's like it's got weights in it. You do curls, all these things, and you can use items around the house like wine bottles or cans, however you need to do it. But she does it over her Instagram, which is super cool. So I've been taking those classes with her. I've been running a lot, and then just doing makeshift stuff, sit-ups, push-ups, and trying to find any way that you can to get your heart rate up for a little bit.
Sure. You're just trying to be inventive over time, or innovative, right? Is the word.
Exactly.
One of our parents is questioning when you look back on your prep baseball career, aside from showing up late at that opening day game here at St. John's Prep, and I would have loved to have seen the look on Coach Yancey's face when you told him Dwight Evans' car was walking you in. What's your favorite memory, or what are a few of your favorite memories from prep baseball?
Some of my favorite memories were actually hitting balls up into the tree that used to hang over the field in right field, because it used to drive me insane. I would get so mad about it and couldn't understand why it was a double. I'd hit like 2 home runs in my high school career, and it was like it frustrated you, but that was one of those things where you had to start learning that the field can't dictate your outcome, and that still plays today. That I play in one of the hardest places to hit in all the majors, and I started learning from that time that it doesn't matter. You still have to find a way to do your job and perform and, make something happen to win the game. So that was actually one of the things that helped me grow, not only as a player, but as a human too, learning patience and perseverance, all these things that, sometimes you just can't teach.
You'll be happy to know we have a much better fence for the outfield right now. And I think the last couple of years, a couple of our guys got robbed from some pretty legitimate home runs because our fence got blown down in the wind. So we now have a fence that sustains the wind. The challenge is we just can't play this year.
I love it.
Mike, when you look at your experience, one of the things we're talking a lot about with our current students and our young alums is trying to find mentors, people that can help guide them moving forward. Can you talk about any mentors or coaches that have really had a particular impact on you and have been essential to you, getting to the place you are today?
Yeah. One of the biggest impacts in my life was my college coach, Tim Corbin. He, I said this the other day in an interview that I thought I was one of the hardest working people I knew until I met Corbs, and the dedication that he has to his craft and the care that he gives off for his players, and he treats them like family. That was something that just really sat with me heavy. And also, Coach Betancourt just being so open to who I was as a kid in high school and in middle school when I needed a place to go and I needed to blow off steam. He gave me a key to the facility and said, come in here whenever you need. And to have people care about you like that aren't blood related, that see potential in you and really kind of offer their help or guidance, is you can't ask for anything more from another human being. And I'm just super grateful to have had those people in my life for sure.
No, it's great. It's great to have those influences. Another parent's kind of questioning in. The shout out is the only piece of MLB gear he owns is a Mike Yaz Giants T-shirt. So you got a little shout out there. You got a Yaz T-shirt being worn around here.
Okay.
And just going back a little bit to the time you spent in the minor leagues before making it up into major league, it took a lot of perseverance. It's really impressive. But were there times you thought that it wasn't going to happen? And then, how did you counter those challenges?
Yeah, there were several times where I was really, really convinced that I was not going to show up for the next day. There are some really tough bus rides in the minor leagues where you play a game at 7 o'clock at night and you hop on a bus and you have a 12-hour bus ride through the night. You show up at 10 o'clock in the morning and have to play a game that night. So you don't sleep, you're irritated, you may have had a bad game. But the goal, the light at the end of the tunnel was so bright for me that all I wanted was one day in the big leagues. And so if it meant that I was going to have to play a game tired or I was going to have to drink an extra cup of coffee, there were times that it felt like I was going to break. And having a support system like my wife, and she would yell at me, like flat out yell at me. She'd just be like, you realize that you're not the only person going through this, right? And she was working 4 jobs, and you just have people that you don't want to let down. And she was the rock for that. She would kind of shake me back to normal and say, like, that's not who you are as a person. That's not what you set out to do. And she would almost say, like, don't let us down. And that was one of those motivating factors that I was like, you know what, as hard as it gets, like, I have a great family, great friends, and I want to make it happen for them almost more than I want to make it happen for myself. And that's when I kind of got some momentum going and started to realize that it was bigger than just being a major league ball player for myself.
Sure. It's one of the things we talk with our students a great deal about is just kind of that perseverance and resilience and overcoming things when they don't go your way and being agile and when there's challenges. So
and those are the times where you lean on people the most, when things get tough and it's not easy and you can't hang on to it yourself. You always have somebody to talk to or to bounce ideas off or to reach out for help.
Sure. So Coach Letard is out there listening and says hello and has a very deep and hard-hitting question for you.
All right.
Do you still play wiffle ball?
Of course I do. He knows that.
All right. My kids actually, three of my kids just started a wiffle ball league at home, and I think they're gonna, with the time they have on their hands right now, they're gonna get through a 162 game season pretty quick. So
Yeah,
we'll see how
at
long
least
it goes.
somebody will.
Yeah. Yep. Another prep grad here, or prep parent and grad. His question is, your grandfather Yaz was his favorite player growing up. How hard is it, dealing with expectations with the same last name as Carl Yastrzemski, and what challenges and opportunities did that present to you as you made your journey?
Um, growing up, I didn't really feel a whole lot of pressure because I didn't grow up in a time where he played, and people would say stuff to me and say he was their favorite player. He did so many great things, and I'd say, yeah, like that's my grandfather. That's great. I'm very happy for him and what he did, but I didn't get to actually watch him play and be around during that time, so it didn't strike me the same. So I got to relive it through people. So I actually really enjoy the stories that people bring, and because he's not a big talker, and
Hmm.
he's let me have my own career and made my own path, and he really made an effort to listen as opposed to tell me what to do. So if I was struggling, he would listen. If I was playing well, he would listen, and that made me feel so comfortable in my own skin. I didn't have to try to emulate him. I didn't have to try and reach his numbers. And that was started when I was a kid. My mom and dad would tell me, like, if I wanted to be a musician, they would support me. If I wanted to be an artist, they would support me. If I wanted to play baseball, they would support me. And at any time, I felt like I could have stopped playing and it would have been perfectly fine with all of my friends and family. But that's what kept me in it, I think, is that I didn't feel pressure and nobody forced that on me.
That's awesome. It's a lot of what we try and share with parents about, kind of the importance of journeying with, as opposed to journeying for, or telling
Exactly.
people how to do things. And it sounds like you had a great relationship with your parents and your grandfather, kind of journey with them as you move forward. So,
Absolutely.
one of our middle school students is reaching out, and his question, I don't know how you can express this in words, but what's it feel like when you hit a home run and you're jogging around the bases and you got all the fans clapping for? Ideally, you're at home and they're all clapping for you, but can you talk about that feeling?
Yeah, I can try. There's not much better feeling in the world. Um, you just like you feel like you're floating as you run around the bases, honestly, because you can't do any better as a hitter. That's as good as you can do at the highest level of baseball, and you feel like you're on top of the world for that 30 seconds that it takes you to get around the bases, and then maybe a little bit more in the dugout till the next play.
That's awesome. Um, as you look at your experiences, and who are some of the, as you looked at different players, who are some of the best ball players that you've had the opportunity to be on the field with, as you look at your career?
Obviously Mookie.
Sure.
He's an absolute stud. I got to play against Mike Trout this spring training, and I believe that he is the best player that will ever play the game. He does everything better than everyone, and he's electric to watch, and he makes all the highlight plays. Some of the great pitchers facing Clayton Kershaw was really cool. I remember facing Noah Syndergaard. That was the first like oh crap moment when I looked up and saw him on the mound. I was leading off the game, and I don't know if many people watch the show Vikings, but they have this like really like dark theme song, and they blasted over the speakers when he's walking out there, and I was like, okay, like yeah, sure, like bring it on, like this is gonna be great. And I stepped in the box and I looked up, and there's a 6'8" man ready to throw 100 miles an hour. I was like, oh, okay. Um, so that was like my first like big name guy that I faced that I kind of shook in the box a little bit.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that's like. I have trouble hitting my own kids on wiffle ball. I would be quaking in my boots if somebody was throwing that fast at me.
Yeah.
Um, a couple of questions that come in, Mike, to talk about your experience at Vanderbilt, and what the process was like, kind of in the recruiting process when you think back to looking at colleges, and how you navigated that. It's pretty challenging in many different ways.
Yeah, I actually got really, really lucky. So Vanderbilt had called me while I was at a camp. So the way that I did it when I was in high school is I went to college camps. So I picked 5 colleges that I wanted to go to, and I signed up for their camp just to get in front of their coaches and meet them and see if they thought that I was good enough to even potentially play there. And so I went down to a Florida State camp because that's where my dad went, and I got a call from Coach Corbin at Vandy, and he said, make sure you don't commit to Florida State before you leave. And I said, okay, well, the Florida State coach told me that I should probably play D2 or D3 somewhere up north, so I'm not going to commit here, obviously.
Great.
And he was a good family friend, and he was looking out for me and where I was in my baseball career then. But for some reason, Corb saw something in me that he liked, but they were full in the outfield, and so I didn't have a spot there. And I had good enough grades so I could get in on my own. I didn't have to worry about baseball or anything like that. My SAT scores were fine. And it just happened that one of the outfielders that was in the class ahead of me ended up getting drafted by the Red Sox, who was Ryan Westmoreland. And he ended up signing, so they had one spot open in the outfield. And he called me and told me that it was mine if I wanted it. And he gave me a heads up. He's like, you might not play till you're a junior, but I think this is a really good fit for you, and I think you'll really, get to your full potential. And I was tossing it up between BC and Brown and then Vandy, and I just loved the atmosphere and loved the city down here when I came to visit. So I just kind of decided to get away from home for a little.
That's
and
awesome.
now I live.
Now you look back and it worked out really, really well. That's awesome.
It did. Yeah.
A couple of questions coming in, Mike, from some of our parents. Part of the challenges I think, parents of young kids face today, kind of, especially in the baseball world, there's Little League, there's youth baseball, there's AAU, there's all sorts of other challenges. And can you talk a little bit, about, any thoughts you have as parents are working with their kids to go through kind of the youth baseball world, how they can navigate that system in a good way?
Yeah, I think there's really only 2 points that I would look for in my child if I were having them play baseball. Number one would be that they are having fun. And if it seems like it's stressful, or they start wanting to not show up for practice or games, then I would take back, because some of the AAU programs are playing 6 games a weekend and traveling to all these places, and it costs a lot of money. And I don't necessarily think that you have to be doing those things to be seen by coaches and stuff. Now, maybe it could help at some point, but I think if you are a good enough player, that somebody will come and find you. And that's what my grandfather told me when I was coming up. And so I didn't do any of that. I played with my friends because I wanted to hang out with my friends and play baseball. I didn't really focus too much on, getting recruited or anything like that, because I wanted to just have fun and win. And I guess that's kind of both points, is make sure that they're having fun and make sure that they're not overstressed. And I think that's really the only 2 things that I could think about for bringing a kid up in the baseball world, and that's where it leads most kids.
That's awesome. It's great advice. Another one of our students right now is asking you, what's the best part about playing in the major leagues? What do you enjoy the most about it?
Playing games that people care about. Right. So coming up in the minor leagues, everybody wants to get one step further, and it becomes very one-dimensional. It's not really that enjoyable, because you have very few people who want to go out and win the game. They just want to play well because they want to get to the next level. When you're in the big leagues, you can't go any further. You can't go to the next level. You can make more money if you play well, but that becomes secondary to winning, and those games all become important. And you start playing in front of crowds that are 40,000 people and everybody wants you to win. It is a very big adrenaline rush.
That's awesome. And then another technical question in the world of baseball, and then I got one more for you after that. But when you played at St. John's, I think we were wood bats at that point in time. You got into college, you were able to use metal bats. Was your experience, your high school wood bat conference experience, was that helpful as you get into the majors, or what's your thoughts
think
there?
So. It's funny because I went through a weird stage in moving up in baseball, where rules got changed every time that I moved to a different level. So when I moved in high school, we were wood bat in conference, and then we would play metal games outside, which was kind of funky to deal with.
Sure.
Then my freshman year in college, we used the regular metal bats, which was like BESR, and then they moved to BB core, which deadened the bats my sophomore year. So I had like all these bat changes, and that was another one of those things where you try to not let it affect you, and you try to learn to become a good hitter as opposed to trying to hit for power, because obviously you can't hit at the ball as far with wood as you can with those old metal bats, and you had to try and understand that and become a really good precise hitter before you were really hitting for power when you get stronger, when you get older.
Sure. So just to close out, Mike, my question is a lot of what we talk about at St. John's is really challenging our students to focus on servant leadership, of influencing any situation they encounter for the benefit of others. You're in a spot right now where you've got a really phenomenal platform. How do you think about different ways to kind of use your platform to influence others for good? And what role does kind of the religious aspect of St. John's, the faith aspect, how has that played a role in your journey as you've gone forward?
It's been huge, and through each step of my career, servant leadership has been a big outlook for me, because I have tried to lift the people up around me, right? So if you can be a positive life impact, then you can make people around you better, and those people are going to return the favor. They're going to make you better. So it's this cycle that creates good people and positive efforts. And when you are able to do it at a higher level, you really have to think about what's important to you. And I think that as I'm going through this and am able to start helping out in different ways that I haven't been able to, it's really unique and special to see the impact that you can have visiting hospitals and seeing just children's faces light up, and their parents are in tears because they've never seen their kids so happy, just from having 4 of us that are there that will throw wiffle balls to them for 10 minutes, or FaceTiming somebody who's sick. There are just a lot of ways that you can create just goodness in the world, and it's really, really unique, and I'm very lucky to be in the position that I've gotten to.
It's a phenomenal answer to kind of wrap things up with, Mike. I really appreciate you making some time for this. I know we were on before we broadcasted. You just came off the field from a workout and knew that there's some changes we had to make, but there's a lot of demands on your time. But thank you for connecting with the prep community. I don't know if it's fair to say, but thank God you're in the National League, so I can root for you during most of the season and kind of cheer you on. I take some heat from my house because I root for Pat when the Bucks play the Celtics. I root for Coach O'Brien when the Texans play the Patriots, and try and put prep first. But know that you have a lot of fans here, and you offered some great wisdom, some great insights, and this was really a phenomenal conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me.
Thanks, Mike. We're very proud of what you're doing, and more importantly, we're very proud of who you are as a person. Have a great rest of the day, Mike.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.